Ethan walked carefully through the ruins of the planet city, his boots crunching against broken glass and crumbled concrete. The wind carried a bitter cold and the smell of dust and decay. The sky was a dull gray, streaked with faint green light from the planet's twin moons. He pulled his jacket tighter, feeling the last warmth of the small heater he carried against his chest. Supplies were low. Food was almost gone. All he had left was a single chocolate bar he had been saving for days. The city was quiet, too quiet. The shadows of tall, broken buildings stretched long across the cracked streets, and Ethan kept his eyes alert. Even in places like this, danger could appear in the blink of an eye. Pirates, wild animals, or worse, other scavengers who did not hesitate to take what they wanted. But Ethan was not afraid. He had survived worse situations than this. As he turned a corner near the remains of a collapsed market, he saw her. At first he thought she was just another shadow among the ruins. But then he noticed her small figure crouched near a pile of rubble, picking through scraps of metal and debris. She was clearly starving. Her skin shimmered faintly in the dim light, pale green with hints of violet, and her large eyes were filled with fear and uncertainty. Ethan froze for a moment. Something about her did not feel ordinary. The girl looked up suddenly, her gaze locking with his. There was an intensity in her eyes, a mixture of hunger, fear, and a quiet dignity that seemed out of place for someone so young and fragile. Ethan felt a strange pull in his chest. He remembered the chocolate bar in his pocket, his last bit of food. He was starving too. He hesitated. "Hey," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. "Do you want some food?" The girl tilted her head, confusion crossing her face. She shook her head slowly, then looked down at the scraps she had collected. Ethan sighed. I have this," he said, pulling out the chocolate bar. His fingers trembled slightly as he broke it in half. "It's not much, but maybe it will help." For a moment she did not move. Then slowly she reached out, her fingers trembling, and took the piece of chocolate from him. Her eyes widened as she tasted it, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. Ethan watched, feeling a warmth in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. "You like it?" he asked. The girl nodded eagerly. She tried to speak, but only strange sounds came out of her mouth. Ethan frowned, realizing he could not understand her language. Still, her gestures were clear enough. She was hungry, grateful, and possibly alone. Ethan tore another small piece from the chocolate and offered it. She took it carefully, almost reverently, and ate it slowly. He noticed how delicate her movements were, how she seemed cautious of every step. Something about her reminded him of a princess in the stories he had read as a child. Someone who should have been protected, cared for, not left to scavenge in ruins. "Don't worry," he said softly. "I'll stay with you tonight." "You won't be alone." The girl's eyes shone with gratitude. She stepped closer to him, leaning slightly on his arm. Ethan felt a sense of responsibility wash over him. He had survived in many dangerous places, but protecting someone else, someone innocent, that was something new, something important. Night fell quickly on the planet. The twin moons cast a faint glow over the ruins, and the wind picked up, carrying fine dust that stung Ethan's skin. He found a small, sheltered corner in the remains of an old building and sat down, motioning for the girl to sit beside him. She hesitated but eventually obeyed, curling into a small ball to keep warm. Ethan wrapped his jacket around her, leaving just enough room for himself. He kept his eyes on the streets, alert for any movement. The girl was quiet, her large eyes scanning the shadows with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Ethan tried to speak to her, to teach her a few words in Galactic Common, but she only repeated them in her own tongue, sounding almost musical. He laughed quietly. Even in the middle of danger, there was something beautiful about her voice. Hours passed. Ethan shared small pieces of chocolate and water from his flask, keeping the girl warm and fed. He learned through gestures and simple words that she had been running from someone, or something. She pointed vaguely toward the city outskirts, her eyes filled with terror. Ethan nodded, understanding that she was lost and perhaps in danger. Suddenly, movement caught his eye. Figures appeared in the distance, walking carefully but with purpose. They wore what looked like ceremonial armor, bright and clean even in the ruined city. Their presence was intimidating, and the girl's eyes widened in fear. She clung to Ethan's arm, trembling. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I won't let them hurt you." The figures stopped a short distance away, speaking in a language Ethan did not understand. Their posture was rigid, commanding, and formal. Ethan felt a strange sense of awe mixed with fear. There was something regal about them, something that suggested they were more than ordinary soldiers. The girl looked up at him, her small hands gripping his jacket. Ethan could feel her fear, her need for protection, and it strengthened his resolve. He stood in front of her, shielding her from the approaching figures. "Stay behind me," he ordered softly. As the figures approached, one of them raised a hand in a gesture of command. The girl froze, and Ethan noticed her body tense as if she recognized them. He frowned. Something about her posture, her reactions. It was like she was familiar with these people, like she knew them. But how could a starving girl know these armed soldiers? One of the soldiers stopped a few meters away and spoke, the words flowing strangely but clearly commanding respect. The girl whispered something in her musical tongue, pointing at Ethan. The soldiers seemed to understand immediately, their eyes shifting from her to him. One of them bowed slightly, then another, and finally all of them stopped advancing. Ethan's heart raced. What had he done? Why were they respecting him? The girl looked at him, her expression a mixture of relief and something else, something he couldn't quite understand. Then it hit him. Her small, delicate hands, the faint shimmer of her skin, the dignity in her posture, and even the way the soldiers reacted. She was no ordinary child, this girl. She was royalty. The thought made him pause. He had just given his last chocolate to a princess. A starving, lost, and possibly exiled princess, but a princess nonetheless. His act of kindness, small and human, had earned him her trust, and possibly the attention of a powerful alien kingdom. The wind howled through the broken buildings, and the girl leaned against him, whispering words he could not understand but felt deeply. Ethan tightened his jacket around her, feeling a new sense of purpose. He would protect her, no matter the cost. The soldiers continued to watch, their weapons ready but unused. Ethan knew that whatever happened next, he had to act carefully. One wrong move, and both he and the girl could be in grave danger. Yet he also felt something else, a spark of hope. Somehow, he thought, they could survive this night. Somehow he could keep her safe. As he scanned the ruined city for any possible escape routes, he realized that the girl had already changed his life. A simple act of sharing his chocolate, a gesture born out of compassion, had led to this moment. He did not know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. He could not let her down. The night grew darker, and the shadows of the buildings stretched long across the streets. Ethan tightened his grip on his makeshift staff, ready for anything. The girl, small and fragile in his arms, looked up at him with trust and hope. And in that moment, Ethan felt the true weight of responsibility, and the strength of the human spirit that would not let fear control him. The distant stars flickered faintly, casting pale light over the ruined city. Somewhere in the darkness, the soldiers waited, the girl's identity and his act of kindness hanging in the balance. Ethan knew that this was only the beginning of an adventure that would test his courage, his heart, and his ingenuity. And as the wind whispered through the ruins, carrying dust and shadows, Ethan made a silent promise he would protect her. No matter what. The city was quiet again, but the tension remained. Somewhere in the shadows, danger lurked. But for now, Ethan and the girl, this lost princess, were together. And together, they would face whatever came next. Ethan's heart raced as the soldiers held their position. The girl, small and trembling, peeked out from behind him. He could feel the tension in the air, like the calm before a storm. Then one of the soldiers stepped forward, speaking in the same flowing language as before. Ethan didn't understand the words, but the tone was different. Respectful, almost reverent. The girl looked at Ethan and then back at the soldiers. Slowly she spoke in broken galactic common, the words soft but clear. My guards. I am Lyra. Princess Lyra. Ethan blinked. Princess? His voice was a mixture of surprise and disbelief. You're royalty? Lyra nodded. Her large eyes glimmered with fear and relief at the same time. Yes, they protect me. I ran from my kingdom. Ethan processed this carefully. A starving girl. A runaway princess. And he had just given her his last chocolate. The simple act of kindness had connected him to someone unimaginably important. He didn't know what it meant yet, but he knew one thing. He could not let her down. The soldiers relaxed slightly, lowering their weapons. Ethan realized that the princess's presence gave him some protection, but only as long as he stayed close. Beyond that, danger could arrive at any moment. He stepped forward cautiously, holding his hands up. "Okay, I won't hurt her. I'll help her. I promise." Lyra looked at him, her gaze steady despite exhaustion. For the first time, a faint smile appeared on her lips. She seemed to trust him completely. Ethan felt a warmth spread through him. Humans were not as strong or fast as many alien species, but they had courage, cleverness, and compassion. That was enough sometimes. The soldiers motioned for Lyra to step forward. She hesitated but stayed close to Ethan. He noticed her small hand brushing against his arm as they began to move. Something about the gesture, innocent yet trusting, made him even more determined. They were going to survive this night together. As they moved through the ruined streets, Ethan learned a little more from Lyra. She gestured toward the outskirts of the city, indicating where she had been hiding and where her enemies might be. She had escaped from a faction within her own kingdom, rival nobles who sought to seize her throne. They had attacked her family and driven her into exile. Ethan frowned. He had faced hostile environments, rogue pirates and wild creatures, but political intrigue on a distant planet was something else entirely. Still, he focused on what he could do. Protect her, plan escape routes, and stay one step ahead of danger. Suddenly, a faint humming sound reached Ethan's ears. He froze. Lyra's eyes widened and she whispered urgently. Drones. Flying machines, sleek and deadly, were scanning the ruins. The rival faction had discovered her location. Ethan glanced around. There was nowhere to hide, only crumbling buildings and narrow alleyways. But he didn't panic. Humans were not the strongest, but they were adaptable. He spotted a pile of rubble and a half-collapsed stairwell. "Here," he whispered to Lyra, pulling her down. "Follow me. Stay low." The drones hovered above, their sensors sweeping the area. Ethan could feel the heat of their engines even from below. He studied them carefully. They moved in predictable patterns, scanning systematically. That was enough for him. He took a deep breath and whispered instructions to Lyra. "When I say jump, you run toward that building." He pointed to a partially intact structure nearby. "I'll draw them away." Lyra nodded, her small hands gripping his tightly. Her trust in him strengthened his resolve. He could not fail her. Not now. The drone's sensors caught movement. A beam of light scanned over them. Ethan ducked, pulling Lyra close. Then he did something that surprised even him. He kicked a loose piece of metal across the ground. It clanged loudly. The drone's sensors turned toward the noise. "Now!" he shouted. Lyra ran as fast as she could toward the building, agile despite her exhaustion. Ethan stayed behind, moving in unpredictable patterns to lure the drones away. Sparks flew as beams of light swept past him. He ducked, rolled, and sprinted between rubble, using every bit of human instinct and cleverness he had learned from years of survival. The drones followed, but Ethan led them on a dangerous chase through the ruins, using narrow passages and debris piles to slow them down. They were faster, stronger, and more advanced, but he was clever. Each misstep he forced them to take cost them time. Finally, Ethan led the drones into a collapsed hallway, unstable and fragile. He dodged behind a beam just as the structure gave way, crushing two of the machines beneath tons of rubble. The remaining drones hovered cautiously, unsure of the terrain. Ethan did not wait. He sprinted to Lyra's hiding spot, grabbing her hand. "You okay?" he asked, breathless. Lyra nodded, her eyes wide but sparkling with admiration. "You saved me," she whispered. "No," Ethan said, shaking his head. "We saved each other." He smiled faintly. "Humans have a few tricks, you know." They didn't have time to rest. Ethan led Lyra through back streets, past old market ruins, and into a narrow canyon that opened to the outskirts of the city. There, a hidden shuttle lay partially covered by debris, a relic from past travelers. Ethan had noticed it earlier and hoped it was still functional. Together, they pushed it free. Ethan climbed inside, checking the systems with quick, practiced motions. To his relief, the shuttle powered up. The engines hummed softly. Lyra climbed in beside him, her large eyes scanning the skies nervously. "You fly?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. Ethan grinned. "I've flown a few. Nothing fancy, but it'll get us off this rock." As they lifted off, the ruined city shrank below them. Drones hovered in the distance, but Ethan's shuttle was faster and more maneuverable than they expected. Lyra pressed close, her trust in him absolute. For a moment, everything was calm, and Ethan allowed himself to relax. Then Lyra spoke. "You saved me. With chocolate?" Ethan laughed quietly. "Yeah, my last piece. I didn't know it would matter so much." Lyra smiled faintly. "It mattered. More than you know." Hours passed as they traveled to a hidden location known only to Lyra. It was a small settlement on a nearby planet, loyal to her family and willing to hide her. Here she would be safe for now. Ethan set the shuttle down carefully, scanning for any signs of pursuit. Once they landed, Lyra turned to him, her expression serious. "You humans, you have courage," she said, "and cleverness. You risked yourself for me, when others would not." Ethan felt a warm glow at her words. We help each other," he said simply. "That's what humans do, even when it's hard." Lyra looked at him, her eyes shining with gratitude and something deeper, respect, trust, and perhaps a bond that could last a lifetime. I owe you," she whispered. "You don't owe me anything," Ethan replied. "Just stay safe." "That's enough." The night passed quietly in the settlement. Ethan and Lyra shared stories of their worlds. She told him about her kingdom, the advanced technology and the complex politics. He told her about humans, about survival, and the simple joys of a chocolate bar on a hard day. They laughed at small things, shared quiet moments of understanding, and forged a connection that transcended species. But even in the calm, Ethan knew danger still lurked. Lyra's rivals would not give up easily. They would come again, stronger, more determined. And when they did, Ethan and Lyra would have to be ready. The story was no longer just about a simple act of kindness. It was about courage, ingenuity, and the strength of the human spirit. Ethan realized that humans were often underestimated, not because they were weak or small, but because their compassion, resourcefulness, and determination made them unpredictable and powerful in ways others could not understand. As dawn broke over the alien horizon, Ethan looked at Lyra and made a silent promise. He would protect her, guide her, and face whatever challenges came their way. Together they would survive. Together they would overcome. And maybe, just maybe, a simple act of giving a chocolate bar could change the course of worlds. Ethan did not know what the future held. He did not know the battles they would face or the allies they would meet. But he knew one thing. Humanity had a strength that no alien army could measure. Courage, kindness, and cleverness. And he carried it all inside him, ready to face the universe, one challenge at a time. Lyra looked at him with trust and admiration, unaware that the human she had relied on so completely was someone who would change her life forever. And Ethan, watching the sunrise over the distant mountains, knew that he had found something precious in a starving alien girl, a connection, a purpose, and a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness could echo across the stars. The universe was vast and dangerous, but for now, they were safe. For now, hope lived in the bond between a human and a princess, and for Ethan, that was enough to keep going.